right, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. In this video today, I didn't know what I was going to label this because I have a lot of different kind of things I want to talk about. And rather than put out like 5 videos that maybe some of you may or may not see, depending on how YouTube offers them, I'm going to put everything in one video today. And I didn't know even what I was going to title this, but I think I've nailed it on the head, which is No One Cares. And it's a motivational video. I know that may sound contrary to what you think is possible, but by the end of this, I think you'll feel a little better about yourself than maybe you do beforehand. I saw this video that came out, and it was from the Washington Post, or excuse me, from Breitbart, but it's about a Washington University professor, and it says AI girlfriends are ruining a generation of men. And they go through here about how men are not able to have friends and how men are really struggling with dating and how things aren't working out so well for them. And they mention that men are turning towards, AI girlfriends and the spicy movies online, and they're being distracted by all these things, and they're tapping out of life. And so what do they ultimately end up saying? Well, they say the AI girlfriends are ruining men, and the spicy movies online are ruining men, and people like Andrew Tate are ruining men, and on and on and on. And what they're doing is the same thing that everybody does every time there's a problem today, which is you look at the end result and assume that's what the problem is, instead of looking at what started the problem? What began the problem? What is it that started men down this path? I have a couple of video clips, one by Michael Knowles and one by Ben Shapiro. I'm going to play through these not real quick. This is going to be a longer than usual video. But it's that nobody sees what's going on. Nobody notices, nobody recognizes, nobody says anything. And then all of a sudden, when 7.2 million men have dipped out of the workforce, and marriage is at an all-time low, and the birth rate is an all-time low, and men wanting to talk to women is an all-time low, men attending college, all-time low, all of a sudden then they say, hey, I think there's a problem here. And the problem can never be what the problem actually is. They have to blame it on something else. Because if we say, hey, you know what? It's entitlement. It's narcissism. It's women have kind of gone crazy. Women's expectations of men. We can't even talk about men's issues without bringing it back to women. As a matter of fact, let me pull up this video to start the whole day out with. All right, here's the first video I was talking about. This is from BBC, and it's about a man that has written a book about men's issues, and he gets invited on the BBC to talk about men's problems. Now, this is 6 minutes long. It is a long one. I'm going to try to zip through most of this here until we get to the point that's... And this gentleman here in the gray shirt, he's talking about... and I'm going to retweet this in a while, so if you're following me at Bachelor Joker on Twitter, you'll find it after I do my videos today. He's talking about men's issues and about men, deleting themselves and struggling after the bug and everything else. And then they ask the woman what she thinks is the issue. This is the part I wanted right here.
Ava?
I think that it feeds into the culture a little bit, this Minister for Men argument. In my mind, I think there should be a Minister for Mental Health, which would be all-encompassing. I mean, you've got something like 7 million children waiting for prescriptions for mental health at the moment. It's a crisis that's endemic throughout the country, not specific to men. And I think, a lot of ministers kind of bandy this about to sort of... I'm sorry, but make an enemy out of women. I think, not you, and I don't think your book is. I don't
accept that. I don't think it is to make an enemy. If we looked at during COVID, men were literally more likely to die from COVID. And I don't really want to cast myself as a meninist or one of these guys from the manosphere, because that's not who I am. But I do find it interesting that sometimes the arguments tend to throw it back.
But who was doing all the work during COVID? A lot of the time, if you looked into people's households, it was the women who were taking on the laundry, the school care.
Now, remember, this discussion started out about why men are deleting themselves and why, because it's the biggest life loss or life loser for men in the UK right now. That's where we started on this. Now we're on to feminism and men not doing enough household chores and that. Do you get it? You see what I'm saying?
All of that,
but I'm not
alongside doing their
disputing any of
jobs.
that. What I'm saying that there are specific issues that men face that might warrant specific attention. I mean, literally, the biggest killer of men under 50 is suicide. That is an arresting statistic, and if that doesn't warrant specific attention, mental health is an umbrella issue.
I have to say that is also because women are unsuccessful. That is a lot of that feeds into that statistic.
But it feels like, it just doesn't feel like you've got any space for this idea that men might have unique challenges that face them. And the problem is, even as I'm saying this, in my mind, it's like I've got out the violin, and I don't want to be.
Read the book.
I don't want to be this guy, because that's part of the problem. Is because you're encouraged at one level is men need to talk about their problems more, and then the moment you do it, you're like, all right, but not quite so often and not quite so loud. So like you say, the book is more light-hearted than that, but it certainly goes around these issues.
Francis?
I think it's about this issue. I've got a brother, a son, nephews, Paul Novak, one of my best mates.
I noticed she didn't say husband. I mean, maybe she has one, but she doesn't mention it.
Who's leading the TUC. When you look at masculinity, it sort of feels like boys are still brought up. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to talk about your feelings. You've got to put on this bravado. And I think that has to change. But
So now they're attacking young boys being taught to be masculine and strong and not share their emotions again, which is the women's view of men's issues. They bring on a guy to talk about men's issues, and who are they now listening to? The women. And they've stopped listening to the guy. As a matter of fact, they shut him down.
I also think that we have to change the fact that women still earn 15% less
Oh, and now we're on women's earnings.
than men.
But no one's saying you can't do both.
No, exactly.
We can multitask.
Exactly. I agree.
Can you multitask?
Well, not me personally, obviously, but I'm saying that. But I don't think that those are reasons to not address these problems.
No, I agree,
Francis.
but most women experience sexual harassment.
Oh, I agree, but let me keep telling you about women's issues now.
I totally accept that. I don't understand what
every
it's happening
day
again with this
by
conversation where I'm
a
talking about the
partner.
specific
But
issues that men face, and you're
here's a
quoting
positive
other issues which I do not contest on
Jeff,
any level.
Here's a proposal.
I'm seeming very chippy now, aren't I? I didn't expect
Why don't
it.
you launch BASH, Blokes Against Sexual Harassment?
I'm totally.
And now we're on what men are. You see what this is what I'm talking about, guys. This is why I go back to the no one cares about you. Now, before you get fired up and bummed out or whatever, hear me through all of this. I'm just showing you some examples of what men are seeing. And then when men decide, I do not want to incorporate in this society, I don't want to work with women in the workplace, I don't want to put up with people like this, I don't want to try to find a girlfriend, all this stuff. This all is my argument to what you're going to see from some of the Daily Wire crew and other people of why men are you know what? If you're not going to listen to me, just forget you. I'm going to be away from you. I don't care. And I'm not going to help you anymore. I'm not going to listen to you anymore.
Totally against sexual harassment, of course.
But do something to support women, stand by women who...
All of it, do you see what I'm saying? He started out, men need support in these particular areas. And here we are 2.5 minutes later, and it's now a lecture on what women need.
We're facing that in the way that women stand by men. You stand by women, and I think we could.
Well, I do think this discussion has already been interesting. I've mentioned the suicide stat several times, and we've ended up discussing other things which are completely valid, certainly in terms of my.
No, he's cucking out completely, but he's playing the game. He's saying everything you're saying is valid. Now let's get back to what I was talking about, please.
Industry, and I understand why those discussions are live discussions, but the idea that we can't have both those discussions, I genuinely find that odd,
nobody said we
Francis.
couldn't.
Is this discussion?
And then she just overrides him, right? I just see when men see this is what makes men furious. Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, women on the left. Why aren't men talking to women? Why don't men ask women out? Why aren't men dating? Why are men ostracizing themselves and watching the spicy stuff on the internet and playing video games all day and just avoiding work, because every place is now annoying to men. This is a sign, I've posted this before, this is a sign in the UK. Unwanted flirting. All of this stuff they say is harassing and it's, of this sexual nature. No flirting. No catcalling, no complimenting, no hugging, no joking, no touching, no kissing, no attention, no staring, no photos, no asking for a drink, no asking for a number, no touching, etc. If it's unwanted, it's not okay. All right, I don't know which of those is okay or not. I'm out. Why aren't men asking women out? That falls under asking for a drink or a phone number. Why aren't guys even looking at me? Why do guys ignore me? That might fall under staring or attention. Men don't even want to talk to us after work anymore. They don't want us to be included in there. That might fall under joking, compliment, flirting. They're doing it to themselves. So more and more men are checking out. And as they check out, all of a sudden they're saying, well, it's AI's fault. Oh, it's the internet. Oh, it's gaming's fault. No. Here's the fault right in front of you. Here's the fault right in front of you trying to have these discussions. This isn't the fault. This is the end result. You know, when I go on my tirades about what's going on in communities, whether it's minority communities or black communities, they say, oh, we've got to open the doors wide open for college for anybody that's a minority, whether they can make it or not, whether their grades are good enough or not. We need to open the doors and make sure they get a degree. Even if they're not able to fulfill that job role and they get hundreds of $1,000s in debt, we need to give them the availability of getting that degree. And then they say, well, we don't want them failing. We don't want to fail them, so we'll give them a passing grade. And when you end up someone that's got a doctor's degree that may not really know what they're doing, and then somebody goes in to get health care from them, and there's a malpractice suit because something went wrong. And I'm not saying that this is, bad doctors come in the rainbow of colors. But my point is, you're putting a Band-Aid on the arterial wound at the end, instead of going all the way back and saying, how are people getting failed in the family, in the education system, in the society, in maybe the environment that they're growing up in? Nope, can't talk about that. We might be touching the third rail. It might be very dangerous. Can't talk about that. Well, here's Michael Knowles. Now remember, Michael Knowles is part of the Daily Wire crew that wants to tell you as a man, just buck up and get married. Yes, you have some valid points about divorce and all the other struggles, but put that aside. I'm going to play this clip because it shows you how little he actually knows about what's going on with men dating in the men's community.
Speaking of hobbies, turning from good edifying hobbies to dubious hobbies, there's a story out in the Hill. It says, AI girlfriends are ruining an entire generation of men. It's by Liberty Vittert. And I didn't even know what this meant. You know, I'm hip and I'm young and I'm cool and I talk to the kids and I got Riz and I smoke cigs behind the gym and I'm, go to the sock hop and everything. But I didn't even know what this meant. And what I learned from this column is that there are apps. There are apps that simulate girlfriends. And they've got a lot of users, like a shocking number of users. In fact, there's one gal who, she's an influencer. She's a real human being. She made an AI bot of herself named Karen and got 1,000 paying users in less than a week and a wait list of more than 15,000 people. So it's generating millions and millions of dollars. And a lot of people, many more people want to use it than even are able to use it right now. And it's not just like they're logging in and, it's just some rote computer program. The AI learns what your desires are and then tailors its messages to your desires, mostly.
Almost like maybe a girlfriend would. If back in the day, I mean, there were some pretty freaky people too back 100 years ago that you just didn't hear about them because they did it in the privacy of their own bedroom. But when a man and a woman, got married and whatever, I'm sure they explored probably many things. They may not have talked about it in the town square like they do today. So it's not like, talking about fantasies and things like that is new. The difference is men are finding out that the women either that they want to share that with aren't interested, or that women are way more experienced, or women have the body counts, or women or women are not able to give them the girlfriend experience. Actually being like a caring human being that might love you and cherish you for who you are. And guys are saying, I would like that from somebody, and they're turning to the AI. Is the fault of the AI? No. The AI is a result of the men being failed. The AI is the result of men not having someone, whether it's friends or society or anybody else to turn to. So the AI offers a solution, and men say, yes. So is that the fault of the AI? You take away the AI, they'll come up with something else. You take away the something else, they're going to take away the something else. This is how this rolls. And again, Matt's like, oh, I've never heard of this AI bot, girlfriend and the girlfriend experience. Why? Because he doesn't care. He doesn't care about what men are going through today. He doesn't know what men are going through. I mean, he's married. He goes home to his family. He does some news stories here and there, and he moves on. They don't understand that there's a massive segment of men today that are not being represented by government, by education, by media, by society, by jobs. These are men that are listless. They feel like they don't have a home. And so what do? They kind of turn inwardly and find their own vices and their own hobbies, and their own things to do, and they magically disappear from society. I'll let him finish his rant here for a second.
Sexual, one would assume, but maybe some of your other inclinations and interests as well. The AI learns from all this to assuage the silent epidemic of loneliness that is hitting this generation of young men, according to Vitter. More than 60% of young men ages 18 to 30 are single, compared to only 30% of women of the same age. So you've got now the clear majority of men, 18 to 30, are single. That's brutal. 1 in 5 men report not having a single close friend, and that number has quadrupled in the last 30 years. And I know it. I mean, I see it. This is so much more than just about sex. This is about people not having friends, people not being able to go out and have a drink with somebody or a cigar with somebody, or I guess that's mostly what I do with my friends, but go out and, play a game of pool or just chat, or it's increasingly rare to have friends these days. And people who don't have friends, I mean, loneliness is such a painful experience. They think that they're the only ones. Obviously, if you're lonely, you feel isolated. But this is a widespread social problem.
Let me just pause it there for a second. He doesn't even realize he's doing this. This is how pervasive this stuff is. 60% of men are not dating. 30% of women are not dating. A huge number of young people do not have friends. The majority of those are male. Instead of just saying men are struggling, men, because men are twice the rate of women. Instead, he says people. Well, everybody, and not just men, everybody. Okay, but this study specifically pointed out men. Men are turning to AI for friendship. Men are turning to AI for relationships. Men are not dating. Boy, it's tough out there for people. See, there's something in the mindset that it's not okay to talk about men's issues. And he's doing this subconsciously. He doesn't even realize it.
Huge number of people who have no close relationships, especially with a girl. The amount of social engagement with friends has dropped by 20 hours per month over the COVID lockdowns. So you say 5 hours per week. It's still decreasing. And so this professor, Liberty Vittert, says that America desperately needs people to have more babies, but all signs are pointing toward fewer relationships, fewer marriages, and fewer babies. And people are going to mock this. To me, the saddest part is the crisis faced by so many people of not having any close friends, which is not just a personal problem. Maybe it's that, you've got to work on your personality and your virtue and all those things a little bit. But you can't say it's just a personal problem if it's widespread throughout the whole society. Then
he's got it on this.
It's a political problem.
Except he says it's a political problem. That's inaccurate. It's a societal problem. Society dislikes men currently. As a matter of fact, I have a thumbnail here for a video that I was going to do. This is a video that I was going to do over on Locals for Locals viewers. I said it's 2023, not 1964. This is okay. This is the number of people hired by corporations in the last, I think, year or 2 years. I have the web page pulled up somewhere. This is not okay. Not when I think it's something like 50 or 55. 58, I think was the numbers from the study. 58% of everybody, which is more than half, 58% of our here in the United States is Caucasian, and yet this is how they hired. You're not hired based on merit. You're hiring based on other merits. Well, they're doing the same thing with women. Women are overrepresented in everything now. And it's not just that men don't have as much content maybe as they used to, because you could say, well, things were overrepresented by men for quite a while. Fair enough. Action movies, the male was the hero and the girl was the damsel in distress. Hey, you want to switch that around a little bit? I get it. But now it's not only is the woman the hero And the man is the damsel in distress, but he's also incompetent, and he's also misogynistic, and he's also rude, and he's a mouth breather, and all the other things. And it is a societal problem. So what's his suggestion to fix the societal problem?
And we need some cultural and political campaign to fix it, because the issue is caused by cultural and political factors as well. That's why it affects so many people. And this is especially true when it comes to romances that could lead to marriage, that could lead to babies, none of which we're getting right now. People are going to mock this, and they're going to say, you freak, you weirdo pervert, you'd rather have a relationship with a chatbot sitting in your mother's basement all by yourself, getting weird sexual messages from a computer, than go out there and have a girlfriend. What a weirdo, what a freak you are. But I see why this is tempting. In fact, the professor says it too. He says this is a way to assuage the loneliness epidemic. So you're feeling lonely, then you start using weirdo tools like this.
He keeps calling it a weirdo tool, not understanding that for a lot of men, it is the only option you have. Is it weird when you're a guy that maybe is unattractive? Maybe you're out of shape or have a weight issue. Maybe you're short. Maybe you've got a bunch of things going on. Now, my first message always is fix yourself. Go get in shape, lose weight, which I mean, and here's how easy it is. I am overweight right now. I used to run ultra marathons, had a six-pack, muscular. I am way out of shape. And I would go so far as to say I'm kind of getting fat. Does that hurt my feelings? No. Why? Because it's real. You know, we all have our struggles at times. Me, I'm building a house, I'm working, I'm trying to do all this stuff. But here's the thing. I still could work out an hour or two a day. I still could eat better. Do I? No, because I give myself that excuse. So I always say to guys, that instead of giving yourself the excuse to use the AI, the excuse to watch the spicy content. Look, if you really want a woman, get yourself in a place where you can get a woman. But before you get there, or maybe if you're not able to get there, maybe you use a product like this. But he has to call you freaks and weirdos when that's not really understanding the situation. I know he kind of said, like, I know a lot of people will see people like this, but then he says the weirdos that use this, right?
And then it seems like a little Band-Aid on the problem of loneliness because you're getting the simulacrum of a relationship, but you know it's not real. So then you become even more lonely, even more isolated, even more encouraged in your weird sexual desires.
See, like he says, weird sexual desires. It's not weird when that's all you have. That's what I'm talking about.
Problem only compounds on itself. It snowballs. And I see why it's tempting too. If you have a real girlfriend, she can tell you no. If you have a real girlfriend, she's a human being who you have to respect. It's not just about the satisfaction of your own desires, as weird as they come. I get why men in Japan, notably, but even in the United States, would turn to porn rather than have a girlfriend. I get why they would turn to these weird sex robots instead of having a girlfriend. In a way, one could more directly satisfy their apparent desires and selfish longings with one of these things that isn't actually human, that doesn't really have a soul or consciousness, over a human being.
See, so now he assumes that everybody that uses this stuff is doing it because a woman could say no, a girlfriend might say no. And maybe you don't want to have to put up with somebody that has a soul or a different opinion or might disagree with you. He's assuming men are doing this by choice. In other words, I would rather have a robot than a real live woman. Now, some of you would say, well, that's true. But here's what he doesn't understand. The men don't want the real live woman because the woman doesn't respect him and they have a high body count. And they come to him maybe after she's burnt all her other bridges and she's getting older and she's less desirable. And so she feels that's all that she can get is this guy. Or that the guy's unattractive and can't get a girlfriend. See, he makes it seem like this is the preferred choice of men. When in reality, I firmly believe it is a secondary choice. If you said to a guy, would you like to have a woman, a girlfriend, or a wife that respected you and loved you and supported you and was faithful to you and didn't lie to you? And oftentimes, now she's going to disagree with you because, you know, she has feelings and opinions too, so you may not always eat where you want to eat, and you may not always get to sleep with her when you want to sleep with her, but for the most part, you make a couple of little sacrifices here and there, and it'll all work out in the end. You know, you'll be you'll get the majority of what you want, you know, you'll get most of what you want 80 to 90% of the time. I don't know too many men that are like, hell no, I'd rather use the calculator with a pair of tits. That's way more fun for me. No, that's not how this works. It's not an option for so many men. It's all they have. And again, I will say this before, I'm not going to continue on that because that's kind of how he goes on his banter. But before I say, hey, I understand why you use these things, and yes, it is a viable option for you, you have to ask yourself, have I tried everything else possible? And I will guarantee you, for the vast majority of men out there, the answer is no. Do you go to the gym? Do you have 5 or 10, well, not 5, do you have 10 to 12 or 10 to 15% body fat? Do you have muscles that show through your shirt? Not that you're a big, athletic, muscular guy. When someone looks at you, do they go, that dude eats way too many Doritos and drinks too much Mountain Dew in front of the computer? Or do they look at you and go, that dude takes care of himself? If people can look at you and say, that dude takes care of himself, you're going to get the attention of women that say the same thing. Are you comfortable in talking to other human beings? Are you okay in your own skin? Are you fine with interacting with people at a party or a restaurant or whatever? Can you make people laugh? Like, if you haven't done all those things, then do those first. Do those first. I mean, Danny DeVito made it in Hollywood, and he didn't start rich. You know, Danny DeVito's 4 foot something. He's back in the 60s, 70s, he started in acting. He played annoying, weird characters because he's a weird-looking guy. But he made it. He got married. He had a family. I don't know how all that turned out. But my point is, you know, if you really, really are determined to succeed at something, you probably won't fail. But I think today too many men say, I'm not going to succeed. Women won't let me succeed. Government won't. Corporations won't. If you want to succeed bad enough, you will. But men aren't getting this message. And so finally they get to the point where everything is bad, where everything's not going well for them, and they just say, I give up. No one cares anyway. They get called weirdos because they can only use an app, whatever. The truth is, you will succeed. Now, maybe you may not necessarily get the wife and the picket fence and the family and all that. You will succeed in dating if you put enough effort into it, if you get yourself in the right shape, if you get a right outfit. But here's the thing, you have to ask yourself, again, is the juice worth the squeeze? And the thing is, a lot of guys today say, maybe this is my only option, or they say, you know something, this is actually enough for me. I don't really care about going out and doing this other stuff. And for that, you're called a weirdo, or for that, you're disparaged upon. And the truth is, look, this is where we are today. And as soon as the fact that more people need to come around and notice this, maybe that'll make some changes. I have this one's a longer one. This is about a 10-minute segment by Ben Shapiro. But again, his whole message is, well, just do it anyway. You know, oh, if I jump out of this airplane without a parachute, or if I jump out of this airplane with a parachute, there's a 25% chance that it won't open. We'll do it anyway. Why? Builds character, helps society. Yeah, but I might get completely wrecked. Yeah, do it anyway. I'll let Ben explain it.
Would you consider a prenup?
Prenups are regularly thrown out all the time. They're typically non-enforceable, especially the longer the marriage goes on, the less likely they are to be enforced. Men get absolutely destroyed in marriage and in divorce.
Now, I don't know if you heard that in the background, but one of the girls said, I agree. So if a man can say men get completely destroyed in marriage divorce and through the courts, and a woman says, no, that's fair, I agree. How bad are things? When even the women are like, yep, we can destroy you. Yes, this is true.
Financially, when it comes to the kids, women are more likely to get custody. And then also, if you do get a divorce, the financial cost of just getting the attorney, getting all that involved. If it's a contested divorce, you're going to spend mid 5 figures, 6 figures on attorneys.
And this is something that's not talked about very often. But if you look at some of these cases, the most recent one was the Kevin Costner case. Like they wanted him to pay something like $500,000 for her attorneys. Maybe that number's wrong, but it was a lot of money, like triple digits for her attorneys. And they wanted him to pay that. So she wants to divorce you, and you have to pay the lawyers that are helping her divorce you. Does anybody else see how stupid that is?
And you got to pay for her attorney too. 50% of marriages end in divorce. 80% of divorces are initiated by women. 90% if she's college educated. 90% of child support payments go from men to women. 97% of alimony payments go from men to women. You know, you have no fault divorce. So a woman can cheat on you. She can still get half your shit.
Now, much of what he says is pretty much the same statistics we pass around in videos and things like that. Now, you can find studies that will support your side more than the other. So if I say 50% of divorce or marriages end in divorce, and somebody comes and says, well, it's only 40% of first-time marriages. Well, okay, I'll use your number. 40% of the time, men get wrecked. Is that any better than 50% of the time? Really? Well, and Ben will mention this in a little bit. Well, if you're part of a religious community, it's only half of everybody else's. Okay, so 50% of people getting wrecked, but if you're in a Muslim or Christian community, it's only 25% of the time. Oh, well, that's perfectly fine. Only 25% of the time, my life is completely wrecked at the whims of a woman. See, this is what they don't understand.
Okay, again, a lot.
I'll be getting to the motivational part shortly. I'm trying to throw some crumbs in there. It'll be the last 5 minutes. but I want you to see why so many men are tapping out, and then everybody's, oh, it's this end result thing we need to look at. No. It's from cradle to the grave men are being fed this stuff. That's what no one is addressing.
A lot of what he's saying is true. The stats on marriage are not completely true. I'll go through those in just 1 second. Again, the rip on the divorce law is a good rip. It is a fine rip.
Okay, so he agrees that we're right on divorce laws.
And the answer is not for men to avoid marriage. The answer is for men to find a good woman to get married to who's committed to values. Yes, of course, marriage.
Okay, guys, you heard it straight from Ben Shapiro's mouth. Yes, divorce laws are horrible. Yes, you can get completely wrecked. But the answer is not to not get married. It's to find a good woman. Oh, thank God you told me that, Ben. And here I was looking for bad women. Here I was just hoping to find the worst one. No, I say this all the time. I say it so often. You guys are tired of hearing me say it, and I'm tired of saying it. No man marries a bad woman. Well, you just don't know what you're looking for. Oh, well, I met her in church. She had a body count of 1. We dated for 3 years. Everything was great. We had same long-term goals, blah, 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 blah. And you say, well, someone like that, well, that's my second ex-wife. How'd that turn out for me? And I didn't turn into a nightmare. You give and you give and you give, and they take and they take and they take. And eventually the woman you married is not the woman you married anymore. They're a completely different person. Oh, well, that's just on you. You should have known 8 years ago that you picked a bad one.
Which is a risk. Of course it is. And that risk is disproportionately borne by men at this point. That is true also. But is the reward worth the risk? The answer, in a huge majority of circumstances where both people are committed, like say share Christian values, for example, the risk is worth it, is the basic principle.
It's a principle, but it's not true. See, the other thing that the Ben Shapiros and the other people of the world tend to, I was married, and for the last, 3 years of my 8-year marriage, getting my wife to be attracted to me and wanting to sleep with me was very difficult. There were nights where she said, let's go out and have a nice romantic dinner, and I bought this new little, whatever outfit, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Man, we make plans to go out to this really nice restaurant. I don't know how many times I can tell you that afterwards we're driving home. She's like, I think I ate too much. I don't feel good. I'm going to go to bed. Well, that's great. I just blew $200 for nothing. That person's statistically married. Are they happy? See, even if you take Ben's numbers that he comes up with shortly, and I know I'll let it play, but even if you take his numbers shortly, which is, 40, it's really only 40% of the time people get divorced in their first marriage. Oh, well, that's not bad. Right. Well, if you meet that person in a church and you're Christian or religious values or well, it's only half that. Oh, so only 1 in 5 marriages end in tragedy. And even if you go back in history and say, yeah, but it's always kind of been that percentage. Okay, but look at the women today. Do you know how much things have changed in just the last 5 to 7 years? I was on dating apps 7 years ago. I was getting dates on dating apps 7 years ago. Matter of fact, when I traveled around the world, I had Tinder installed and I paid the $10 a month to put myself in different locations. So if I was traveling to, say, Frankfurt, I would put myself in Frankfurt like 3 days before I actually got there, and I'd start swiping. And I'd get a match, and I'd say, hey, I'm going to be in Frankfurt in like a day, because I was only going to be there for a few days. So I figured, well, I'll get the match and the conversation going while I'm headed there. And then when I got there, I'd go on a date or something. Was I able to do that? Yeah, I was. What happened after only being gone for basically, I was gone for about 1.5 years, and I had probably been off Tinder maybe a year after that. And one time I said, just out for kicks. Let me see what's out there. I installed it. And it was not like a massive town, but it was, I set my radius within, 30 minutes. So I probably had a few 100,000 women to choose from. How many matches did I get? 1 a week, maybe? And it was one of those where you're like, oh, hell no. Like, if I'm a 4, you're a 1. It was even well below my standards. I mean, let me just, not that my standards are low, but I mean, it's well below what I consider myself to be, and I don't think I'm that great a catch. But my whole point was, it's a nightmare out there. And so when a lot of these studies, they bring statistics up and they're like, oh, well, back in 2012 or 2015, man, it is a different world out there. Just even in the last, couple of years that TikTok has been out. Man, you want to talk about falling off a cliff. Wait till TikTok came around. That's where you're seeing women bragging about being the worst. I mean, it was already bad on Reddit. It was already bad on Facebook and Twitter. But once you put in TikTok of people getting hundreds of thousands of views for crapping on men, it hit the turbo button on this acceleration.
And again, these arguments are made not just by people like this. Andrew Tate has made the same sorts of arguments. Here's Andrew Tate talking about how men don't benefit from marriage.
I think it's a fantastic environment, and I think in an idealistic world, that's the way it would be. I think the reason it's not happening today is that I don't think many men actually benefit from marriages or relationships anymore. And people are always going to have to require some degree of incentive. I think that we've set up the world now in a way where men are seen as worker droids. They're expected to go work all day, come home, clean up as well, share the cleaning with the woman, not have no meal prepared for them, not have any authority over the household, and just be a worker droid and be sad. And I don't think that many people understand that men are intrinsically wired to desire respect amongst our peers and in our environments. This is why CEOs work so hard, because they get respect in their company.
Okay, now I forget what Ben said on this. Are we wrong? A lot of guys can afford, not all, but a lot of guys that are ready for relationships say to themselves, I can afford at least a nice apartment for 2. I could probably afford a small home. We'll always have cars to get us around. They may not be luxury cars, but they'll get us around. And we can start building our future together. And what do women say? No, you don't make enough. I require, I desire, this guy's a loser, I'm better than that. If the average median household is $54,000, go out there and ask women, hey, would you marry and date a guy that makes $54,000 a year if he's around your age? No. 6 figures, seven. I don't need much, 75,000 a year, 100,000 a year. As long as my car's a year or two old, they've lost all connectivity with reality. And so then women say, well, you work, honey, and I'll work. And then we can afford the things that I want. But that also means he doesn't have really that much pull. He's lost the respect. And then, yes, he is required to do half that household chores. And for everybody that says, oh, well, men should. No. I disagree. I think you should split. Look, and here's the thing. Okay, because I get in this argument all the time. Okay, do women mow the lawn? No. Do women use the weed whacker and go out and take the weed whacker? No. Do women do maintenance on the car? Rarely. Do women go out and are they the ones climbing on the roof to fix the hole dripping through the roof? No. What happens if the electricity goes out? Honey, what is that? What happens where there's a boom in the middle of the night? Honey, go get that. Okay, that's the men's share. Women's share is laundry and dishes. You're not splitting everything equally. See, this is the problem. So then if a woman says, my battery, I keep getting this battery low on the car. Well, there you go. Aren't you going to fix it? No, it's your turn to fix it. Remember, I do the dishes half the time. You do the dishes half the time. I do the laundry half the time. You do the laundry half the time. Last time I fixed the car. It's your turn. But I don't know what I'm doing. That's not an excuse. Pull half your weight, lazy bones. Do you think that would go over? The lawnmower won't start. What's the matter with it? I don't know. We'll fix it. Look it up online. Will you help me? See, they only say it's half the work when it's half of their work, or traditionally what was half of theirs. Laundry, traditionally woman, you do half. Dishes, traditionally woman, you do half. Vacuuming, woman, half. Mowing the lawn, okay, I'm done with mowing the lawn, you can edge it. What? Okay, I edged it, now you can mow the lawn. Wait a minute. Hey, the car needs washing, degrease the engine, check the oil. I'll show you how to do it, and then half of that is your job. That's what men are seeing. It's you do all of your work, men, and half of hers. All your money is hers. Well, all her money is hers, and half of yours is hers. This is the deal that's been passed around. And so even when you say, oh, divorce statistics are very low, are many men really that happy in marriage? I know in my marriages, everything was fine in the beginning, and then they fell off like a cliff. See, they never seem to touch on that statistic of marriage.
Okay, so again, I don't disagree with much of what he is saying, but the solution, very often with the red pill kind of movement, the diagnosis is correct and the solution is wrong.
I disagree. The diagnosis is correct, and the solution is until things get fixed, we're not participating. That is the correct exit strategy. My car does not have any brakes in it. I have diagnosed that my car will not stop. So my and your solution is I'm not going to get in that car and accelerate because I can't stop. Ben's solution to me sounds like, well, we know the car won't stop, but get in it, accelerate anyway. Just make sure you choose a good steering wheel and really good tires so you can go around all the curves without slowing down. And only 20% of the time will you die in a fiery wreck. No, that's not how any of this goes.
That happens very, very often in this sort of movement. The reason, by the way, that Pearl and the rest of
and here's the thing, I'm not gonna pull up this next segment because it's got Destiny and Pearl in it. But you know who Daily Wire uses as its experts of the red pill they're going to? A woman and Andrew Tate. When I won the Daily Wire contest, and by the way, I'm still waiting for a nice chunk of land to buy, and my house is being built. So I'm spread way too thin to put energy into that, but it's still going to happen. That's all planned to happen. But when I won that contest, they said when you signed the paperwork to run for the contest, it said you agree to have an interview with a Daily Wire team and for appearances, like if they want to use you in any ads or promotions. I'm like, hell yeah, do it. I'd be all on board to speak to Daily Wire. And then after I won the contest and I sent in the paperwork, I said, so can you, and here's the thing. As I was running in the contest, she said, hey, we checked out your YouTube channel. It's really great. We think what you're doing's awesome. We're really glad that you're able to win it and we appreciate it. So they saw my content. So after they cut me the check, I said, hey, when did you guys want to do the interview? Because I was supposed to go meet them right? Because originally it was like, go meet them to pick up a check, like a, probably a big cardboard check kind of thing, or go meet them to pick up your car. And they would presumably film you and, look what Daily Wire give me. They're awesome, right? What happened? They cut me a check in the mail and they're like, oh, well, midterms are coming up and like midterm elections are coming up in like 6 months. The crew's really busy with that. Oh, I see. So you're so busy putting out Ben Shapiro, 1 hour video that you don't have enough time to meet with me other than that in the next 6 months? What about after? Never heard from him. So I won't go so far as to say they didn't want to talk to me because of who I am and what I do, but I'll tell you this, they had a golden opportunity to talk to somebody that has been looking into these issues for 3 years, and they were just like, we're good. So do they really care? No, of course not. Of course they don't care. And so they reach out to Andrew Tate and they reach out to Pearly Things. Now, look, I don't care if they necessarily reach out to me, but you notice they only go with the big names, and I'm fine with these big names being out there. Let me put this out there again. I'm fine with the big names being out there and getting the recognition and taking the heat and the hate. That's fine. But they're listening to a 29-year-old woman about men's issues. And they're listening to Andrew Tate, a multi-millionaire star champion kickboxer, about men's issues. They aren't talking to a whole lot of just guys. They're not reading a whole lot of emails from just guys. They don't seem to be close enough to the ground to really understand what's going on.
Is totally crazy. Okay, the idea that you get divorced, let's say you have kids, you get divorced because you can't split up who handles the dishwasher, is nuts. And comparing marriage to roommates, college roommates, yes, because you don't expect to be roommates with your roommate for the rest of your life and have children with them, generally speaking. A marriage is not supposed to be a contractual arrangement that is purely about who shares household duties. It's supposed to be about building a household. So it's that attitude toward divorce that is making the red pill crew basically say, okay, well, if that's your version of marriage, then I'm not in.
Again, I think, let me let him finish.
I agree. If that were my version of marriage, I would not be in. The point that I'm making is that shouldn't be anybody's version of marriage.
Okay, it shouldn't be anybody's version of marriage. But it is. And whose version of marriage is it? The feminists, the women's. If a man don't bring in 6 figures, I don't want to be with him. If he's not hiring maids, I don't want to be with him. If he's not calling me yay queen, I don't want to be with him. If I have, Chad's kid, I'll just delete it for the 7th time and throw a house party because of it. Do you think this is what men want? But see, we don't care what men want anymore. So Ben's got a great speech about, I wouldn't want that either, but we shouldn't be like that. Well, not a lot of dudes are like that. It's this feminized society. It's the women that are doing this, not the men. So now, does he call out feminism in this? Does he point to women? Does he point to the left and how overwhelmingly they're all on board with this and how on board women are with this stuff? No, he doesn't. He's just like, come on, guys, do it anyway. It doesn't work. And so when we have all the problems in the world, it's very easy to say, men, come on, you can do this. Since when are men listened to anymore? Since when are men supported? Since when do men have any? Let's go back to this first stupid video I did right here. He brought up men's issues, and by the end, you've got one talking about women are the pay gap and women aren't getting supported in school, and the other woman saying, oh, men do these bad things to women. None of this conversation was about women to begin with. It was supposed to be about his book and how men are being failed, and at the end, conversation ends up on women. So tell me again, Ben, how are men supposed to do anything about this? I swear there's motivation coming at the end of this. It's not much, but I think you'll feel better about all of it. I just got to get these gripes out of my way because I'm tired of being told it's our fault for not doing X, Y, Z when we don't have really the ability to do much except control our own worlds right now.
Just like the current version of divorce shouldn't be anybody's version of divorce. And I want to give you some stats that demonstrate that not all marriages are created equal. Not all predicates for marriage are the same. So Brad Wilcox, who is a social science scholar on all of this. He has a book called Get Married, and it's all about marriage and divorce. And here are some of the facts in that book that are well substantiated by the data. The number one factor in predicting a high-quality marriage is perceived partner commitment.
Okay, let me just stop. So first of all, this when he pulls up the graphs, the book was from 2015. Now, I don't know when he got the data from, but presumably it takes you a year or so to write a book. So that puts the data back at 2014, 2013, maybe 2010 or 2012, because a lot of these studies, the studies take a year or two, and then, whoever's writing the dissertation or whatever takes a year, whatever. We might be looking at data that's 20 years old right now. I think, or at least a decade old. Guys, we've talked about this. How quickly have things gone from, dating apps aren't that good to guys to, oh my God, this is a nightmare. What is happening to everybody? What, 3 years, 4 years? I think I started this channel when things got really bad. And I think that was like 2018, 2019, when I noticed like, wow, what's going on? So what do you think it's going to be like from 2015, 2013, 2012, whatever it was? The world is a different place. So yeah, maybe the statistics are better now or worse now. We don't know. But I think if you take a litmus test and just ask guys, hey, how are things going for you out there? Guys are like, whatever you've heard, it's 10 times worse.
If you believe that your partner is deeply committed to the marriage, you will be deeply committed to the marriage.
Okay. My second marriage. This woman, college educated, got her PhD. Very educated, not super left-leaning at the time. We were really into each other. We waited 6 months until we hit the bedroom together because she had a body count of 1, and that was also a long-term relationship. So here, now, because he's going to bring out these statistics in a minute. So my second wife was a couple years younger than me. She was college educated with a PhD. She wasn't super left-leaning. We enjoyed hobbies together. We had long-term goals that were similar. Neither one of us wanted kids. Everything was in line. And it went south after 5 years. And it finally ended after 8. Now, she's super lefty. She's a feminist. I think last I checked, she had green or purple hair. She teaches at a university. That's not the same person that I married. She just went off in that direction. And ultimately it came down to, well, do you want to be married to me? Or are you just too busy with university and your college and all that stuff to even be bothered being married anymore? And she's kind of like, yeah, I'd rather chase my career. So all the statistics that Ben talks about, I literally did. It didn't work for me. Here's a real life example.
Which is one of the reasons why it really matters how you date. It really, really matters how you date. So I agree that in a context where you're picking up a girl at a bar and then you live together and then you get married to her, that's a very risky situation. You put yourself in a situation that is very risky, but that is not.
That's how 99% of people meet, Ben.
How I've ever recommended dating. That is not ever how I've recommended getting married. It is all part of a holistic view of how male-female relationships work. If you just take marriage as an institution and you just throw it out there and however you date is supposed to be equivalent, that of course is not true.
The thing about, I guarantee you, Ben met his wife in his community, likely at the same, what do they call it, synagogue, I guess? Likely at the same synagogue. Their families got to know each other. They hung out over the holidays. Everybody became very tight-knit. And then they decided to get married. Then they married, and then it was the first time they got in bed together. That's great, Ben. Good for you. There's not enough religious women for that. There's not enough women that are conservative for that. There's not enough non-crazy women for that. Can 3% of men find that, or 5% of men? Maybe. What about the other 45% of men out there that are like, if you asked many men, would you join a church and go to church so you could meet a good girl? Oh, yeah. Do you know why there's jokes about pastors' daughters or the minister's daughter? Because that's true, too. They always have this, well, I won, so you can too. And that's nice on paper, and it's very motivational. but it's the minority in the statistics today. I'm happy, so you can be too. That would be great. I think a lot of guys would like that. But that's not, again, I don't know how long. Ben has 4 kids and has been probably married a decade. Do you think things have changed in the last 10 years, Ben? They've changed in 3. It's unrecognizable what it was 10 years ago. God forbid, 20 years ago. The world has changed that quickly.
Women who attend church are 50% less likely to divorce.
Okay, all right. So 50% divorce rate by most modern numbers. The book he quotes at 40% is data that's like a decade old. Most modern numbers from modern studies say it's 50%. So if there's half that chance, it's 25%. Here's 4 M&Ms in front of you. 3 of them will give you a $100,000 check. 3 of them will give you a wife that loves you for the foreseeable future. But 1 will give you a monster that will try to take half your crap, take your kids away from you, and punish you for the next 18 to 20 years. Okay, choose your M&M, or don't have any M&Ms. Which would your choice? Overwhelmingly, men are like, I don't need an M&M that bad, dude.
For example, so when you heard Pearl earlier talk about, for example, I've seen Christian women do it, I've seen Muslim women. Yes, but the question is likelihood. You can always find somebody in any group who does X, Y, or Z. The question is, how often does that happen? How do you mitigate your risk?
Well, apparently 25% of the time, according to your own statistics, Ben.
As far as the stat that 50% of marriages end in divorce, just about 40% right now of first marriages end in divorce, which is way, way too high.
He took that again from the book that was written in 2015 that's likely based off studies from 2014, 2013, 2020, or 2012. That's decade old. TikTok, women's empowerment, feminism, colleges, all that has changed a lot in the last decade.
High. It's also down significantly since the 1980s. But again,
yeah, and the part he just said there, divorce is significantly down since the 1960s. Yes, and I did a video on this. It's because marriage rates are significantly down. You know, if 100,000 people are getting married and 50,000 people are getting divorced, that's 50%. But if only 50,000 people are getting married and 25,000 people get divorced, well, divorce rates drop by 50%. Yeah, so did the marriage rates. So proportionally, it's the same. Again, it's very pretty hearing this come out of Ben's mouth, but it's the icing on the cake, man. There's so many more layers underneath all of this.
Again, it's not equivalent between groups. College-educated parents' risk of divorce has fallen by about 25% since the 1970s. And here's a good stat. Almost 90% of their children for college-educated parents are being raised in married, largely intact families today.
Largely married intact. Is that with the same mother and father, or is that with stepdad? Because if you look at a lot of the statistics, the wife will leave the original husband, the father of the kids, remarry often for college-educated people. So are they with a biological father or a stepdad?
Today. So it turns out...
And what percentage, again, what percentage of these women that are college-educated are conservative? What percentage? It's very little now. Colleges overwhelmingly are left-leaning, so much so that Ben Shapiro has tried to speak at some of these colleges, and there was a riot. Look at the Berkeley riots. They had a riot to make sure that Ben Shapiro couldn't speak there. But he expects you to be able to find the same woman that went to this college, and she's somehow going to make a great wife? I don't buy it.
That there is actually a formula to a successful marriage. It tends to be conservative, religious, highly educated.
Those 3 don't go together very often, do they? Conservative and religious, yes. Conservative and highly educated, not so much anymore, not with these colleges. Now, go back a decade, 2 decades ago, yeah, I'm sure you'd find a larger percentage. Today, like if you say a man is a man and a woman is a woman, it can't be any other way, they kick you out of college. They remove you for that. So what, you have to be the silent conservative in college?
Those would be like the biggest things that are going to affect whether you end up staying married or whether you end up divorced. By the way, another factor that ends up determining whether you stay married or end up divorced is, again, about the nature of the marriage. Do you have kids? Marriages with kids divorce far less often.
Okay, maybe so. But when they go, they lose the kids. That's the point of the statistics that they're talking about. I'm not even going to read the rest of that. I'm not going to listen to the rest of Ben, because he just kind of goes through kind of the same thing. You know, he brings up, oh, well, here's marital status of 2015. And this is from a study, I guess, from 2015 or taken in 2014. And you know what the trope he brings up is? You know the trope he brings up is? Well, married men live longer than single men. Well, we've covered that before. It's because married women more often nag their husbands to go to the doctors. And single men the statistic in single men is also divorced men. So divorced men drink a lot more. They're a lot unhappier. They self-delete more because of everything they owe to the state. Those are counted as single men, believe it or not. What do I mean by no one cares a motivational story? Governments don't care about you. We know this. Your taxes to them. You're a unit of GDP. You're 1 unit of workforce. They don't care about you. They care about you so much to vote for them, to get them in power and give them what they want. But if you as an individual or even a large group of people don't make it, they don't care. We know this. What about society as a whole? Society as a whole doesn't care. They've got, I forget what the numbers are, but if you look in California, there's something like 80,000 people that are homeless. You look at the number of people that are having themselves ended because they take too much fun juice in their arm in California. They don't care. It's just a statistic. You look at how many homeless, go hungry or freeze or whatever. They don't care. It's just a number. And society's the same way. How do I know? Because, all the crime in these cities where, black men are shooting other black men, they don't care unless they can politically use it or use it to promote something that particular society wants. And plus you can tell in the commercials and everything else. When a man has nothing left to lose, he has everything to gain. And, when you hear that, you're like, well, duh. I mean, that's kind of like if you can't go any lower, the only place to go is up. But when you look at things like, and it's you can use this for good or for bad. Like if you're in a really bad place, which I have been, many of you have been, you have a couple of options. You can pick up the bottle, you can start swigging, you can lose your job, you can end out on the street, you can hate society, you can sleep in a tent, and you can just check out. Basically, you're self-deleting without actually ending yourself. Or the other thing you can look at is you can say, you know something? I can't be lied to anymore. Like, you can't fool me anymore. You can't lie to me. You can't give me false hope. You can't shame me. You can't make me feel bad about myself. Like, you have no power over me anymore. When Ben Shapiro turns and says, men, this is your fault, you go, shut up, dude, whatever. When the government says, hey, you know what, we're gearing up for conflict, we need you to, shut up, no. We'll throw you in jail, I don't care. If everybody tomorrow said, I want all the spending in this country and the taxes to go down 50%, then the government says, if you don't pay your taxes, we're going to arrest you. If one person doesn't do it, they will arrest you. If every single American in the United States says, I'm not going to pay my taxes, I told you, until you get rid of half of this bloat and half of this crap, I'm not going to pay it. You'll go bankrupt and I don't care. Well, but what about I don't care? Do you think they can do you think they can force 350 million people to do what they say? No. It's all an illusion of power. Women have no power over you. Society has no power over you. Conservatives, liberals, nobody has power over you. No, yes, the police state does. But in large enough groups, they don't. What's overwhelmingly happening is men are saying, I don't like the selections I'm given in life, whether that's job, whether that's salary, whether that's society, whether that's the advertising that a product uses, whether it's the craptastic movies we get in the theaters anymore, whether that's dating, whether that's marriage. I don't like my choices. And they're checking out. And right now, people are just starting to notice. They're just starting to notice. And they're blaming it on everything but themselves. They're blaming men. They're blaming, spicy movies. They're blaming video games. They're blaming everything but what the real cause is. The real cause right now is women. It's women in these executive boards and their advertising. It's women and how awful and insufferable they are to date. It's women in being feminists. It's women in wanting to be the girl boss. And maybe they never come around to blaming women. It's the laws that women fight for in the courts that overwhelmingly punish men. And men are just like, you know what? If you're not going to listen to me by what I say or my silent protests, I don't care. I'm going to do what's best for me. What's best for men? Making a good income, having guy friends, having good hobbies, finding things you're passionate about, hitting the gym, eating well, traveling, going abroad. I mean, you can take a flight abroad, in most cases, take a flight abroad to Southeast Asia, spend several months there and come home, and it'll be less expensive than your rent was at an overpriced apartment for a month. How do I know I did this? I did it. My flight round trip, now this is a little while ago, but one way. I went from Egypt to Thailand. And I went from Thailand, you can only stay in each country 30 days. So I had to leave. So I just went Thailand to Philippines, to Thailand to Philippines, Thailand to Philippines. I had a lot of fun, fellas, let me tell you. The flight from, Thailand to the Philippines was like $70. And then 30 days later, I'd come back. And then the flight home was, $600, something like that. And when I was there, I was living in a $200 a month rental, like Airbnb type apartment. I had a lot of fun, man. I've even considered doing that for the rest of my life, but I'm getting a little old enough. I want to have a house and settle in for a while. Men have so many things they can do with themselves that don't include women, that don't include marriage, that don't include the cliquey, popular things in society. And the men that can't find that, and the men that say, I'm miserable, maybe you might have an extreme case where you really are miserable. But I bet if you ask yourself, am I drinking, a couple liters of water a day? Am I hitting the gym? Am I making sure I have guy friends? Am I making sure I pick up new hobbies? Do I have long-term goals in my life? If you say yes to all that and you're still unhappy or miserable or lonely, I'd be very surprised. More often than not, it's usually men that say, well, actually, I'm not eating that well. No, you're right. I'm really not going to the gym. Yeah, I don't have any friends, and I'm really not looking for any. See, that's what happens. Is that you're so tapped out that you don't even try for those things. And then you're like, well, I'm not happy. Well, did you try? Did you really try everything you could? Well, no. Oh, well, okay then. Then until you do, then you don't have a leg to stand on. And if you do all of those things and you still come away unhappy, you probably want to go see a doctor. Maybe there's a little imbalance or something or other going on. Because I'm telling you, men were perfectly fine back 100 years ago. Being a farmer on a ranch, and maybe his wife kicked the bucket, giving birth to their first kid. And now he's a single man on a farm all by himself. He didn't walk out to the barn and throw a rope over top of it. He kept growing. He kept tending to his farm. He kept going into town on Saturdays to have a couple of drinks of whiskey and maybe play some cards with some guys. Kept an eye out for a good woman at church. Yeah, things are different, but they're always the same. And I think too many men too easily give up today and say, oh, well, that's it for me. Have you really done everything? Have you tried everything? I don't think you have. And so, people like the governments and society and the Ben Shapiros and the lefties, all these people are going to point all their woes at you. And you can let them heap on top of you until they crush you, or you can just calmly step aside and say, I will not allow you to make this my problem or my fault. Go about your life. I think you'll be fine. I think you'll be okay. I think you'll be happy. That's my takes on it. That's my take. I went a little long today. I know, actually, I went way long, but every once in a while, I just have a bunch of things that stack up, and I'm like, I got to yell at the universe about this crap. And today was one of those days. So if you made it this far in, I appreciate that you did. If you like my content, join me on betterbachelor.locals.com/support. Over there, I have a great community of guys, like-minded men. I think there's a couple gals over there, but we don't hear too much from them. They just kind of lurk and listen. Great community of guys. We do a lot of fun stuff. I hope you come over there and join today. It's like $38 to support for a year, which is half the price of a crappy Starbucks pumpkin spice latte. So I'd appreciate it if you did. We'll leave it there, and I'll see you in the next one.